Wood fibers or paper has always been just great for building wasps' nests and beehives. And you could also make your own paper clay. I had this dry piece of clay that I couldn't use, so I broke it into small pieces and then I mixed it with some paper pulp. 3 parts of clay and 1 part of paper pulp. The drier the clay you have, the easier this is. So I first mix just my clay with the paper pulp, and then I add water. The paper I have is actually bought from a hobby store, but you could of course use toilet paper or newspapers and mix it with the clay. You can do it by soaking the clay and paper with water and then mix it so it really gets mixed together. And I left the lid open and let this dry slowly. The other way you can do it is if you have a big piece of plaster. Then you just take the clay, put it out on the plaster and leave it for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then you turn it around. The plaster will just dry out the clay, and you turn it. If it is not dry enough, you can always put it back for 10 more minutes. When the clay is dry enough to be wedged, you know that you can start using it. This is now my final piece of paper clay, and I will actually build something out of it. The most common use for paper clay is to repair things that broke. This apple is leather hard, and I just use a little bit of paper clay to fix it, and I can after that just burn it in the kiln. Now I start by pinching, and my clay base is a stoneware clay. I will make a dragon out of this. Paper clay is great in many different ways. First of all, you can build really delicate and thin pieces out of it, and it will hold. You can burn it in a kiln, just like normal clay, and you can actually mix normal clay with paper clay, as long as you have the same clay base. You can then glaze it in a kiln, and well, of course you need to have ventilation because the paper will burn away in the burning process. As you probably noticed, I don't use that much slip when I attach my pieces in this video. And that's more or less just an experiment. I will test how great this paper clay is and how good the different pieces stick together. So, I am not really sure if this dragon is going to hold, but I will give it a try. First, I start by making the ground shape, and I try to get it even on both sides. And to get it symmetrical, I use a wooden stick to draw some lines for the eyes and different attachments. This way, it's much easier to place the eyes and things on the right spot. I make the eyes. And then I fill them out with eyeballs and use a small tool to make them look great. Now I start making all kinds of horns and pieces of skin and stick them to my dragon. I must say, this clay actually feels different than normal stoneware clay. You can feel the fibers of the paper in a different way than just fibers in the clay. Yes, it's really fun to work with paper clay. And also the good thing is you can leave it to dry and attach more to it if you want to. Now I was actually excited to do this, so I did all in one piece. So the clay is actually the same dryness all the way through, except for the wings that I will make later on. So now I will just make the dragon look like a dragon in the face and design all kinds of horns and stuff. And you can see it's really easy to attach the different pieces. Sometimes I dip them in some water. Other times I just put them on my dragon and they will actually stick. So far so good. Time for the teeth. I make a row of teeth and then after that I cover it with a small piece of upper lip. This makes it look a little bit more natural. You could of course work for many hours with a dragon like this. And I don't know about you, but for me, it's always hard to know when to stop. So, I attach the last pieces, and after that, it's time for me to make the scales and the texture of the dragon skin. I have a small wooden stick, pointy in the end, and just by using that, I get the scales that I want on the body. As you can see, this is not hard. You just press gently, and of course you have to try to put them so they get into a pattern. I work as a teacher here in Finland with kids in the age of about 7 to 13 years old. And paperclay, I must say, I think this would suit my students really well. And of course, dragons and fairy tales. I can take them to the class and tell great stories about them. Now, the last finishing touches to the face. And as I said, it's really hard to know when to stop. But as always, if I make too much patterns, it's really easy to remove them just by dipping my finger into water and smoothing it out. It's just clay, anyway. You might wonder how long it took to make this paperclay, from the dry clay onwards. Well, if you don't have a piece of plaster to put it on, you have to wait for at least, well, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get it dry enough to start making something. But with a plaster, it's much easier and faster to do it. And the good thing is you can use all different clays that you have in store. So now I just finish up my last things on my dragon, and after that it's time to start making 2 wings. Okay, I'm done. Or am I? Well, it's now time for the wings. So I use a roller pin and make a small thin slab And then I cut some pieces of paper clay too. Everything is paper clay. I design the wings on a piece of wood, and of course I make both wings the same size. But then I turn one of them around so I don't get two left wings or two right wings. This is just the basic shape. After that, I place them out on my piece of slab. I use a little bit of water on this so they really stick, because this is going to stand alone, so it should stick well. And I try to make them symmetrical. But you see, I don't use slip and score technique this time. So that's an experiment. It might break. I put a knob on the end, and this will stick to the back of my dragon. And then I cut out the wings. These wings are now going to dry for a while so that they keep the shape. And I actually used a hairdryer to dry them really quickly. So first cut out, smoothen out the edges, and then dry them out a little bit. So these are the dragon wings, and I really like the shape of them. And now I just dry them. As you can see, this one is leather hard, it's almost dry, and I actually attach more paper clay, wet clay, to that leather hard clay. No slip and score, so this might break. You need to slip and score if you have just plain clay. Remember that. So now I just make the back sides so that they don't look boring. And again, I dry them out for a while. If you have great ideas on how to use paper clay, please let me know. It would be interesting to see your results too, of course. The wings are now leather hard, and I attach them to my dragon. And this time I actually put some slip on, because I think that if this will break, it will probably be the wings that falls off. I use a little bit of support, just as long as I attach the other one. And after that, my dragon is done. I really hope that you enjoyed my video and that you get some ideas on how to make paper clay and what you can do with it. So if you liked my video, I hope you subscribe to my channel. And if this dragon holds, I will make another video on the glazing and burning. So I hope to see you again. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your paper clay.